All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Benjamin, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be talking about my initial ratings for the 2022 midterms. And I'm going to straight say it. Um, it's probably going to be a Republican favorable year. The last time the party of the White House gained seats in the Senate was in 2002, and I don't think anybody would be wrong in saying that 9/11 probably helped the Republicans gain seats. Um, it's rare, basically. Um, so I think it's reasonable to say that the Republicans will have the upper hand in terms of the momentum going into 2022. And we'll see how many special elections there are, where they are, and anything like that. Um, right now, I've laid out the seats that I'm dead certain will be safe for each side. Republicans are defending more ground, obviously, but um, yeah. So I'm assuming, by the way, that Georgia will have a Republican as the incumbent in that particular seat. Probably Loeffler. Yeah, no, it would be Loeffler because her race is a special election this year, and that's going to a runoff. Will it be competitive? Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a state that is becoming more and more competitive. Um, so let's go ahead and start giving out the ratings. By the way, the two most flippable seats I see in 22 for the Democrats are North Carolina and Pennsylvania. Both of those are definitely where the seats I would consider the most flippable. Wisconsin sort of is, but sort of isn't. Um, After all, Joe Biden only just barely won Wisconsin in a massively high turnout year. So it's definitely kind of in that leans red category. He's also only sort of winning Pennsylvania. I mean, he's winning by a decent margin, but we also have to remember just how high the turnout really is this year. And that 2022 will have much lower turnout and especially much lower Democratic turnout. Truth is, Republicans turn out in significantly higher numbers for midterms, especially when their party doesn't hold the White House. This is kind of just a standard, well expected thing. Look at 2014 for a prime example of that. So let's start with the states that I'm going to say are favorable to the GOP. First, we're going to go with Florida, and I am actually putting this one in the likely category. I think Marco Rubio, especially if he runs for re-election, if it is Marco Rubio who does, and he does run for re-election, it's I would almost be willing to put it into a safe category. Just because I think he really is that strong of an incumbent and that strong of a candidate in Florida. And the Florida Republican Party is just really good at getting votes. I'm also going to put Alaska in that likely category. This is different than past years where I would have considered safe, but Alaska is starting to become a bit more of a competitive state. Ohio, Ohio's kind of turning into a red state, almost a solidly red state. Um, Forget exact. Trump almost won by 10 here, and similarly in Iowa, and it is significantly further to the right than the rest of the nation at this point. So I'm actually putting Ohio, especially with Portman. Yeah, I'm actually going to put Ohio as safe, and Iowa. I think Chuck Grassley is in a slightly worse position than Rob Portman, but Iowa is definitely a seat that probably won't flip. Let's see. Democrats would need to net 2 seats to gain control of the Senate. in 2022. And so far, I haven't put a flip up yet. Georgia, I'm putting in the leans Republican category along with North Carolina. With Biden only just winning Georgia, which is really weird, given that it's just, I find it a little odd that Georgia flipped this year at the presidential level. Yeah, so I'm just going to straight say it. I don't see it flipping in the Senate during a Republican wave year. Now, by the way, I'm saying this, it's actually going to be difficult for the Republicans to flip many seats. We'll see. Looking at... where's the next area I want to go to? Yeah, let's go back to the Rust Belt. Wisconsin, I'm also going to put in the leans red category for right now. Now, Pennsylvania is a little bit different. Because it's going to be a Republican wave year, I'm going to put it in the tilt Republican category. But I definitely could see the Democrats flipping this seat, especially considering Pat Toomey is retiring. So the Republicans won't have incumbency advantage in Pennsylvania. And that means that the Republicans are I currently expect the Republicans to hold all the seats that they're going to have currently occupied in 2022. Now let's go to Colorado, where I really just don't see Bennett losing. I'm actually putting this in the likely category because if the wave is large enough, it might flip. I forget what the full name of the lady in Nevada. It's Catherine Maestro Cortez, I think. I want to say that's her name, but I'm not dead certain. Her seat could be vulnerable if the Republicans get a large enough turnout, because Nevada was close in 2016. Not necessarily at the Senate level, but at the presidential level, and it was close at the presidential level this year as well. So, depending on that said, the Republican base, but the Republican bench in Nevada is kind of weak. So I'm going to give the Democrats the advantage in Nevada. Arizona is interesting. I could honestly see Doug Ducey running for that seat, and he might be able to win that over Mark Kelly, especially if Mark Kelly votes too closely to Democratic Party leadership. If this were Kyrsten Sinema, I would say Sinema would probably be able to just barely hold this seat. But Mark Kelly isn't running as far ahead of Martha McSally as he would have liked. It was a fairly close election. McSally ran behind Trump, obviously. But Mark Kelly didn't beat her by as much as he probably would have liked to. And McSally is a terrible candidate. So Mark Kelly is definitely a very vulnerable senator. And part of that is because, number one, a lot of the issues he's strong on don't really align with the state of Arizona, and I don't think he's as moderate as Kyrsten Sinema. I could honestly see this being a flip for the Republicans. So my initial rating is going to be tilting it towards the Republicans. Now, this is not to say that the Republicans are dead set to flip this seat. As a matter of fact, tilt is kind of saying the exact opposite. I would put it as a toss-up, but I don't like to have a lot of toss-ups in my maps. So I'm giving one side the edge for right now. And that's the Republicans, because I don't see Mark Kelly voting like Kyrsten Sinema does, or Joe Manchin. I just don't. And if the Republicans get a good enough candidate for this seat, it's going to be very difficult for the Democrats to hold this seat, even though Arizona definitely is trending towards the Democrats. That is not an argument I'm going to go against. It's just true. And we saw that this year. Now we move up to the other two seats that I have. And Connecticut, I only put that one up there because I do see some evidence that these 4 states are somewhat trending Republican at the national level, but it's not going to really take hold until the 2030s, so next decade. However, New Hampshire, on the other hand, we're going to see Maggie Hassan, the incumbent, the Democrat, versus more than likely Chris Sununu. And this is another pickup opportunity I can see for the Republicans, and I think it's a much stronger pickup opportunity than Arizona or Nevada. I'm actually putting this in the leans category if Sununu actually does run, because he's an extremely popular governor up there. He's relatively moderate. He's more conservative than, say, Charlie Baker in Massachusetts or Phil Scott in Vermont. But he definitely is that old school, moderate, Bush-style Republican who would do very well in that area of the country, and I think he would be able to win that seat, especially in a Republican favorable year. So that's my initial Senate rating. Currently, that would be a Republican net of 2 seats. And we'll obviously see where things go moving forward, especially as we get polling and especially as we get actual candidates running. And again, this you could actually argue should be safe. And I'm going to go ahead and actually move that to safe before I move on. I'm going to put in the safe just because I don't think the Republicans have a very strong bench in Connecticut. I could be wrong, but I really don't see them having a strong one. Anyway, so we move on to the governor's races, and these are actually a lot less nationalized. And people are willing to cross party lines in order to get a candidate they like up and in government. Now, I'm going to assume that Charlie Baker runs for re-election in 2022, and assuming he does, Massachusetts is safe for the Republicans. Now, it's said a lot of Republicans would say Charlie Baker is a rhino, but I'm not here to make that call. And I'm also assuming Phil Scott runs for re-election in Vermont, and if he does, that's also a safe Republican seat. I think Republicans stand a very good chance of flipping Pennsylvania because Tom Wolf is term limited, and the Republicans will have a few decent. Republicans actually have a decent bench in Pennsylvania, from what I know. The flip side, we have Maryland, where Larry Hogan is term limited. I'm putting that in the likely Dem category just because if the Republicans run somebody who is very similar to Larry Hogan, they could absolutely flip. They could absolutely hold Maryland, but I just don't see it. Moving down to Florida, if I remember correctly, Rick Scott is in the Senate, and it was Ron DeSantis who's the governor. Honestly, I see this being a little bit more competitive than the Senate seat, But DeSantis is going to benefit from the Republican Party doing as well as they have been in Florida. And so, yeah, that's where I'm putting that one. Texas, I think the Republican bench is just too good in Texas, and I don't see the Democrats flipping this seat. Um, Even if Greg Abbott runs again, I think most people in the state still like him. So there's that. Alaska, I'm putting in the likely category, maybe even the leans category, just because it's going to be a competitive seat. I could see Michigan flipping just based off of um, angry Republicans, but whether or not they turn out in high enough numbers to beat Detroit is a different story altogether. Um, I'm not sure exactly how popular Governor Whitmer is up there. Um, I'm going to say that, assuming she runs for re-election, I'm tilting this to her just because I favor incumbents. Um, and a similar thing in Wisconsin. I'm tilting that to Evers just because, again, when in doubt, err on the side of the incumbent. Minnesota, I'm putting in the leans Democratic category just because, well, it's Minnesota. And I can make an argument for putting that in the likely or even safe, but Rust Belt is kind of trending towards the Republicans, and there may be some evidence to suggest that the Republicans could make inroads there. One of the areas where I'm not going to err on the side of the incumbent is in Kansas. I'm leaning this to the Republicans just because Kansas is a very deep red state, and, well, I forget his name, but the guy who lost the governor's race to the current incumbent probably won't run again, and he was really hurt by a third party bid. So I think a more popular Republican would be able to flip that. Arizona is an interesting one. Like I said, Doug Ducey is term limited, and he might actually run for the Senate seat against Mark Kelly. So this is going to be a truly interesting race, and I can honestly see the Democrats flipping this one. I'm going to tilt it towards them, but this is a true toss-up. New Mexico, I'm putting in the likely Dem category. Colorado, I'm putting in the safe Dem category. Nevada, I expect Sisolak to win re-election. Again, err on the side of the incumbent. I'm going to lean this one to Brian Kemp down in Georgia. And let's go up to Maine and the New England states. Now, New England likes their liberal Republican governors. Now, that's liberal from a social perspective, from a social policy, domestic policy. Most of them are very sound fiscal conservatives, or more accurately, they believe in fiscal responsibility. And I'm going to err on the side of the incumbent in Connecticut, though it will be a very competitive race, I expect. New Hampshire, I'm going to lean this one towards the Republicans, but it will be a very competitive seat. Again, this is especially if Chris Sununu does what I think most people are expecting and runs for the Senate seat. Maine is going to be very interesting because of the whole ranked choice voting, and we may see some really interesting stuff going on. If Paul LePage winds up being the Republican nominee, I don't think it's going to go to them. I'm going to lean it towards the incumbent. The governor of Rhode Island is currently is term limited, and I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I could see a Republican winning there just because it's that really weird situation where, again, a liberal Republican can absolutely win in Rhode Island. But I'm going to lean it again towards the Democrats because, err on the side of the incumbent party in a lot of cases. And if I'm going to make a mistake, that's where I'm going to do it. So this is my preliminary governor's map. And I may actually do a House map for all districts simply because why not? But yeah. Anyway, likes, comments, subscriptions, they always do help, and I greatly appreciate them. We're not that far away from 600 subscribers, and if I make that before the end of the month, that'd be awesome. And right now I'm working on updating my model for 2024, my presidential election model for 2024. And part of that is I have to wait for states elections to be certified because I need to get my partisan voter index set for 2024. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see y'all next time. Take it easy. Have a nice evening. Bye bye.